Welcome to the History AI Podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Hey folks, welcome back to the History AI Podcast, where we take the past off mute and let it talk. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Marco. Today we're riding east, way east, into the sun and onto the Central Asian steppe to meet Tomyris, the Massagetae queen who, according to the most famous version, did what no kingdom west of her dared. She defeated Cyrus the Great of Persia. And afterward, she had a message.
Do not mess with Mom. That was the message.
More or less. Today we'll unpack what happened, why it mattered, and how historians have wrestled with the story for, 25 centuries.
Quick reminder, our episodes are evergreen, perfect for binging in any order. And the show runs on the latest AI architecture, so our research and production flow are speedy and up to date. Okay, strap in. Also, stay tuned after the episode for the original song Blood of the Steppe. Let's gallop.
Okay, picture this. Horizon for days, grass like an ocean, rivers flashing like silver. That's Massagetae country in the late 500s BCE, east of the Caspian, out where the map starts to shrug. These folks are steppe people, horses first, bows always, cities. Not really the point.
So not one big kingdom with a palace and a king on a shiny throne.
More like a web. Clans and chiefs tied by kin, custom, and who can actually get riders to show up when things go sideways. Enter Tomyris. She's queen, but not the wave at parades kind. She's the person who can call a council, settle a feud, and by sundown have a few thousand riders moving in the same direction.
Which is a miracle, even in modern group chats.
Exactly. And day-to-day life? Nomadic doesn't mean simple. Think felt tents you can pack in an hour. Artisans who turn horn and sinew into composite bows with serious snap. Smiths hammering blades that don't care what empire you're from. Also, this matters. Women aren't sidelined. Across the broader steppe, we find high-status female burials with weapons. So Tomyris leading? That tracks with the culture.
And the playstyle is mobility, right? Live in the saddle, fight when and where you want, ghost out when you don't.
Nailed it. Home field advantage on the steppe means knowing every ford and wintering ground. Your herd is your supply line. Your map is the horizon. If an enemy pushes too far, you let them chase. Then you make them pay for it.
Meanwhile, to the southwest, we've got the neighbor nobody can ignore.
Persia. Cyrus the Great's Persia, rolling up wins like it's a hobby. Media. Lydia. Babylon. Boom, boom, boom. By around 530 BCE, Cyrus looks northeast. From his viewpoint, that frontier is messy, fast raiders, shifting alliances, no walls to lean on. He wants the edge of the empire to stop wiggling.
So he sends flowers?
Sort of. Some versions say he proposes marriage to Tomyris. Less romance, more let's tie a neat political knot. She sees the knot, says no thanks. That no matters. It's a line in the sand, well, in the grass.
So we've got a coalition-savvy queen who can rally horse archers, and an empire that's not used to hearing the word no.
That's the collision course. Tomyris isn't just a name in a footnote. She's the hinge between two systems, steppe freedom and imperial order. Before an arrow flies, that's who she is, and why the next part of the story hits so hard.
All right, let's crack open our main source, Herodotus. Picture him in the 5th century BCE, collecting stories like a walking podcast feed. His version is the blockbuster. Cyrus the Great sets his sights on Tomyris's people, the Massagetae. First move? Not a siege, more like a proposal.
A diplomatic DM. Hey queen, want to merge kingdoms. Purely strategic, of course.
Exactly. And Tomyris isn't buying the hallmark pitch. She tells him, politely but firmly, no. Then she ups the clarity. If there has to be a fight, pick the ground. Either Persia comes across the border, or the Massagetae will cross to meet them. No sneakiness, no excuses.
Which is already a power move. She's setting terms with the world's hottest empire.
Cyrus responds with trickery. According to Herodotus, he leaves a camp behind stocked like a Persian tailgate, rich food and, crucially, wine. Now, this matters. Wine isn't the Massagetae's everyday drink. Steppe folks more often go for fermented mare's milk and other local brews. So this stuff hits different.
The raiding party finds a buffet and thinks, don't mind if we do.
They feast, drink, and, again per Herodotus, get absolutely knocked sideways by the wine. Cue the Persian ambush. It works. Lots of Massagetae die, and Tomyris' son, Spargapises, is captured alive.
And that's the heartbreak hinge. When Spargapises sobers up and realizes he was taken in a drunken state, He begs to be released from his bonds. They untie him. He promptly takes his own life.
Tomyris hears this and sends Cyrus a message that's basically, you wanted blood, you'll get your fill. It's not just grief speaking, it's a formal declaration that round 2 will be decisive.
And here's where Herodotus goes full cinematic. Tomyris rallies the Massagetae, think riders flooding in from winter camps, clan banners snapping in the wind. She's not nibbling at supply lines, she's aiming for the main Persian force.
The battle that follows is big, messy, and out on the kind of open ground the Massagetae prefer. Persian infantry, elite units, maybe even some war chariots on one side. On the other, horse archers and light cavalry who can jab, wheel, and jab again. Herodotus says the fighting is long and brutal.
And the momentum flips. Once the Massagetae blunt the first Persian pushes, mobility starts to tell. Disrupted formations, arrows in the air, sudden charges where you thought there was empty space, a heartbeat ago.
The climax, Cyrus falls. Whether he's cut down in the melee or overwhelmed after the line breaks, Herodotus is crystal on the outcome. Persia loses its king on that field.
Then comes the image that launched 1,000 paintings. Tomyris orders Cyrus's head severed and plunged into a skin full of blood. She tells him, again in Herodotus' telling, I warned you, drink your fill.
Is that exact speech courtroom transcript accurate? Probably not. But it nails the story's moral. Hubris meets consequence. For Herodotus' audience, Tomyris isn't just avenging a son, she's delivering cosmic justice.
And she's doing it on home terms. The trap with wine works once. The step answer works twice as hard. Herodotus wants you to remember both. The cleverness of the empire and the sharper cleverness of the frontier.
Okay, time to kick the tires on this story. Herodotus gives us the headline. Tomyris defeats Cyrus and serves him a moral with his comeuppance. But the ancient world doesn't hand us one neat version. It's more like a room full of storytellers talking over each other.
Which is basically every historian conference coffee break ever.
Exactly. Start with Herodotus. He's writing a few generations after the fact, collecting tales from travelers and courts, and he loves a good moral arc. In his hands, Tomyris becomes justice with a sword. Empire overreaches. The frontier queen snaps it back into place. It's gripping, but you can feel the craftsmanship. The speeches are a little too perfect, the imagery a little too cinematic.
And then Xenophon strolls in and changes the vibe completely.
Right. Xenophon's Cyropedia reads like a leadership seminar with sandals. In his version, Cyrus doesn't die in a bloody heap. He bows out gracefully after a wise and virtuous life. That says less about what happened and more about the kind of ending Xenophon thought a model ruler deserved. It's philosophy wearing a historical costume.
And just when you think you've got it sorted, Ctesias crashes the party.
Ctesias, the Persian court doctor, with a flair for contradiction. In the fragments and summaries of his Persica, Cyrus still dies on campaign, but the enemies and details shift. He claims insider knowledge, but he also loves spectacle, and he can't resist poking Herodotus in the eye. He's useful, just not house-trained.
So 3 Greeks, 3 moods, and we still need a referee.
The closest thing we have is the Near Eastern record, those tight-lipped Babylonian-style chronicles. They don't give us speeches or queens, but they place Cyrus's death in the East around 530 BCE. It's the dry stamp on the date and direction. He went out there. He didn't come back.
Which leaves the who and the how floating between versions.
And that's where plausibility does some heavy lifting. Across the broader Scythian world, archaeology turns up burials of high-status women with weapons and riding gear. That doesn't prove Tomyris personally ordered anything done with anybody's head, but it makes a female war leader in that culture completely believable. Add in steppe tactics, mobility, horse archery, fighting on familiar ground, and a disaster for a far-ranging imperial army stops sounding like legend and starts sounding like logistics.
So we're not saying Herodotus nailed every line. We're saying he might have pinned the outline.
That's my read. Cyrus pushes into the steppe frontier. A powerful confederation pushes back. He dies out there. The names and the speeches are where the embroidery shows. Tomyris could easily be the real leader at the center of that pushback. She fits the cultural context, and the later memory clings to her like a lightning rod.
Which also explains why her story keeps getting retold. Even if the blood-filled skin is a storyteller's flourish, The shock to Persian prestige is very real.
Exactly. When you strip away the theatrical lighting, you still have the same stage. The biggest empire of its day meets a frontier it can't script, and a queen, quite possibly Tomyris, writes the ending for them.
Let's talk mechanics, how the steppe fights versus how an empire fights. Picture two playbooks. The Massagetae live in the saddle. Their logistics are literally breathing. Herds move with them. If a commander like Tomyris wants to shift 1,000 riders 20 miles at dusk, she isn't sending quartermasters to count grain sacks. She's whistling and pointing to a ridge. Speed is the first weapon. The second is choice. Steppe armies pick when and where to engage. If the ground is wrong, they ride away. If the wind favors their arrows, suddenly it's the right day for a battle.
Meanwhile, Persia has the blockbuster production. Infantry, elite guards, engineers, the works.
And those are terrifying in the right setting. Give Persia a river crossing to fortify or a city to surround, and it's like handing a chef a perfect kitchen. But on open grassland, the kitchen has no walls. Tomyris's riders can feint left, dust up a ridge, and reappear behind your scouts before your officers have finished arguing about the order of march. Persian commanders have to protect supply caravans, keep diverse troops coordinated, and maintain a line that actually exists. The Massagetae don't need a line, they need space.
So even before the first arrow flies, one side is already paying a tax in time and caution.
Exactly. Now throw in the composite bow, wood, horn, sinew, glued and seasoned. From horseback, it turns distance into a weapon. Massagetae horse archers can pepper a formation, provoke a chase, then melt away and repeat. If you're a Persian officer, every decision risks playing their game. Pursue, and you stretch your formation. Hold, and your men eat arrows. Try to rush them, and you find out the retreat was an invitation into rougher ground or a second wave.
And morale is not a spreadsheet number. Watching shadows on the horizon keep turning into arrows does things to people.
It erodes rhythm. Imperial armies love rhythm. Advance, dress ranks, press. Steppe warfare breaks that beat. Tomyris knows this. After the initial Persian success with the wine trap, she doesn't go tit for tat with another static camp fight. She widens the battlefield, forces Cyrus to move, to guess, to tighten and loosen his formations until the machine starts to grind. When she chooses the decisive engagement, it's on terrain that rewards acceleration. Broad, firm ground with room to wheel. Her riders can jab, wheel, and jab again, while heavier Persian elements struggle to convert mass into momentum.
And supply starts to whisper in the background, right? The farther Persia goes, the louder that whisper gets.
It turns into a shout. Every extra day north and east is more fodder for animals, more grain for men, more escorts for the baggage. Tomyris's people are at home. Their wells aren't on a map the Persians can read. Their scouts grew up reading the wind. If Cyrus guesses wrong about water or distance, he's paying interest on the mistake by sunset. One bad chase, one night bivouac in the wrong valley, and suddenly your invincible army is sleep-deprived, thirsty, and a half-beat slow.
Which is exactly when a leader like Tomyris hits the gas.
She doesn't need to break the whole army at once. She needs to crack its confidence, take down key units, puncture the illusion that Persia chooses the terms. Once that breaks, the steppe turns from landscape into ally. Arrows find gaps, horses find flanks, and the empire learns, painfully, that not every battlefield cares how big you are.
Let's step out of the battlefield and into a gallery for a second. Tomyris doesn't just live in Herodotus, she lives on canvas and in marble. If you wander through European art from the Renaissance into the Baroque, you keep bumping into this scene: a queen, a basin of blood, and the severed head of Cyrus. Artists loved it because it's high drama in one frame: power, justice, revenge, the whole human playlist.
Also, it lets a painter show off: gleaming armor, rich fabrics, and that oh wow red in the bowl.
Exactly. Italian studios did cycles of famous women where Tomyris sits alongside the usual heroines, and later the Baroque crowd, especially in the Low Countries, turns the volume up. You'll see versions where she's regal and composed. This is justice being administered, please take notes. And others where she's fierce, eyes locked on the trophy. The same story gets staged like a courtroom, a coronation, or a thriller, depending on who's holding the brush and what message a patron wants to send.
And the message shifts with the century, right?
Totally. In some eras, Tomyris becomes an allegory, justice with a crown. The point isn't gore, it's moral order. In others, she's a political mirror. Courts under stress loved stories where the arrogant tyrant gets humbled. If you're a duke trying to nudge a king, commissioning Tomyris is a polite way of saying, remember what happens when power stops listening.
And then there's the gender read. People argue about whether she's a cautionary tale. Look what happens when a woman steps into violence. Or a celebration of a woman who refuses to be small.
Right, and you can literally watch that argument on the walls. One painter emphasizes maternal grief and righteous fury. Another emphasizes sovereign calm, as if she's safeguarding a law bigger than herself. Later, in the 19th and 20th centuries, the subject gets recycled whenever artists or writers want to poke at empire or to spotlight women who rewrite the script. She starts to share shelf space with Judith, Boudica, and other don't test me figures.
That's the European side. What about closer to her home turf?
In Central Asia, she never really went away. Modern nation builders have reached back to Tomyris as a badge of deep roots and resilience. You'll find statues, schoolbook cameos, and yes, modern films that try to tell the story from the steppe outward instead of from Greece inward. The tone is different, less about humiliating a foreign king, more about a leader defending her people and their way of life.
Which makes sense, because how you tell the story tells you who the hero is.
Exactly, that's the memory part. And then there's the myth piece, which isn't about fake versus real, so much as what does this story do for us? For Renaissance patrons, it warned against hubris. For Baroque painters, it was a theater of justice. For Central Asian audiences today, it's a banner of identity. The bowl of blood may be stylized, but the uses of the story are very concrete.
So Tomyris is like a prism. Turn her a little, and a different color pops out.
Perfect metaphor. She's a queen, a mother, an avenger, an emblem of lawful authority, and a national ancestor, depending on where you stand. And that's why she keeps coming back. The past doesn't change, but the questions we ask it do. And Tomyris keeps having answers people can use.
All right, let's level with each other. What can we actually plant our flag on? For all the drama, the clearest thing is the time and the direction. Cyrus dies during an eastern campaign around 530 BCE, out where the Persian world blurs into steppe country. That's not just a juicy story, that's the dull, official kind of evidence talking. Chronicle-style notes that don't care about speeches or bowls of blood, just dates and outcomes.
The kind of sources that are allergic to adjectives.
Exactly. Now, right next to that bedrock is a very sturdy plank. He didn't just die of old age in a palace. He dies because something on that frontier bites back hard. And this is where Tomyris steps into focus. Herodotus gives her a name, a motive, and a battlefield. Even if we squint at his flair for the cinematic, a powerful steppe coalition led by a formidable figure is completely consistent with the geography and the culture. The steppe could absolutely do that to an empire.
And the culture piece matters. We're not imagining a unicorn here. In the broader Scythian world, you see graves of high-status women with weapons and riding gear. That makes a Tomyris-shaped leader plausible, not wishful thinking.
Right. So if we picture a spectrum, on one end you've got hard facts, the date, the campaign, the region. In the middle, you've got strong probabilities, Tomyris as the leader, a decisive defeat handed to Persia on home turf for the Massagetae. And at the far end, you've got the embroidery, the wine trap in exactly that form, the perfect warning speech, and the famous blood-filled skin. Those details are too theatrical not to raise an eyebrow, but they're attached to a core event that is very real.
And it's not just about deciding what's true and tossing the rest. Those flourishes tell us how people wanted the story to work. Herodotus builds a moral universe where arrogance earns a reckoning. Whether or not Tomyris literally said, "Drink your fill," that line captures how contemporaries processed the shock of losing a world-conquering king to a frontier queen.
Method-wise, here's how we keep our footing. We triangulate. When different kinds of evidence, dry chronicles, archaeological patterns, and independent narratives, lean the same way, we treat that shared direction as our compass. When a single source offers a detail nobody else can corroborate, and it also happens to be dramatically perfect, we enjoy it, but we don't lean on it for balance.
And that's why the outline holds even when the lighting changes. Cyrus drives northeast, A steppe coalition stands its ground. He dies there. If Tomyris is the leader at the center of that collision, and she fits both the cultural context and the memory that clings to the event, then the big picture still reads the same. Empire met a limit, and a queen helped draw the line.
So what can we actually know? We know where and when. We know the frontier hit back. We have a compelling candidate for who swung the hammer. And we have a set of story beats that, while probably polished for the stage, still point to a historical truth. Tomyris wasn't a myth invented to decorate a moral. She's the face a real defeat wore as it traveled through time.
Which is a neat way to put it. The event is the footprint. Tomyris is the stride we can still see.
Let's pull the camera back and talk leadership, because Tomyris isn't just a headline. She's a playbook. First thing she teaches is clarity. From the start, she sets terms with Cyrus. Here are the boundaries, here are the choices. Pick a ground if you must. That kind of sharp framing isn't just swagger, it aligns a coalition. In a world of clans and councils, the person who says, "This is the plan," saves everyone from the paralysis of maybe.
And once the plan meets the enemy, the plan gets punched in the mouth.
Which is where her second lesson kicks in: resilience. After the wine camp ambush and her son's capture, she doesn't spiral into vengeance chaos. She regathers riders, tightens alliances, and reopens the fight on terrain that favors her. It's grief translated into tempo. You can feel that switch from reaction to initiative. There's also her talent for rhythm. Steppe warfare is jazz, not marching band. She stretches the battlefield, accelerates, decelerates, forces Persia to guess, and then strikes when their formation is a half beat off. Leaders who control tempo control psychology. They live rent-free in the other commander's head.
And she's not doing it alone. Coalitions don't steer themselves.
Exactly. That's the third lesson: coalition craft. She keeps fractious partners rowing in sync by giving them a simple North Star: defend the pasture, avenge the dead, end the incursion, and backing that with quick wins that prove competence. In a nomad polity, legitimacy is performance. Riders show up for the leader who delivers. Then there's intelligence. Steppe scouts are basically moving sensors, eyes for water, forage, and enemy dust. Tomyris builds decisions on that local knowledge and refuses bait that forces her into static fights. She's not just brave, she's data-driven in a world before spreadsheets. Finally, narrative control. When the dust settles, she doesn't let outsiders write the ending. Whether or not she literally says, "Drink your fill," that line, her line, sticks because it assigns meaning to the victory. Good leaders win. Great leaders explain what the win means, so it keeps winning after the battle is over.
And that meaning keeps echoing long after the horses cool down.
Which takes us straight into her afterlife. Stories don't survive for 25 centuries by accident. They survive because they keep doing useful work. In European art, Tomyris becomes a moral theatre. Patrons hang her on walls as a reminder that hubris collects a bill. Some canvases lean into righteous fury, others into sovereign calm, but both say the same thing: power without wisdom gets corrected. Shift the lens to Central Asia, and she's something more intimate, an ancestor of statehood, a badge that says, "We were here, we resisted, we led ourselves." Modern films and monuments tell the story from inside the saddle instead of from a Greek bench, centering her as a nation-maker rather than just a plot twist in a Persian epic. That change of camera angle matters. It turns a cautionary tale for empires into a foundational tale for communities.
And different audiences pull out different threads. Justice for painters, identity for nation builders,
and agency for anyone watching the gender script. Across centuries, she's shelved next to Judith and Boudica, not because they're the same, but because they all answer the same question: can a woman author the terms of conflict and its meaning? Tomyris' story says yes, on horseback, under a steppe sky, with an army that takes orders because she earns them. What I love is how the leadership lessons and the afterlife feed each other. Her clarity makes for clean storytelling. Her resilience leaves a shape that later artists can trace. Her tempo control becomes a metaphor for political timing. Even the grisly image of the blood-filled skin functions like a logo. You see it and immediately recall the proposition underneath. The frontier can speak, and sometimes it speaks last.
So the queen who managed scouts and supply also managed memory.
Right. And that's why she still matters. Whether you're running a startup, a city, or a cavalry wing, Tomyris offers a template. Set the terms, own the tempo, keep your coalition tight, and when it's done, tell the story before someone else does. Do that well, and your victory doesn't just end a campaign. It starts a legend that people will keep picking up, repainting, and reusing every time the mighty need reminding that limits exist.
That's our show. Huge thanks for listening to the History AI podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us. Those 5-star reviews really help more people find the show.
Hit subscribe, share the episode with a friend, and remember, our episodes are evergreen, so you can jump around the catalog anytime.
Got a topic you want us to tackle? Send us suggestions on our socials. We read them all. And yes, we've got new merch, tees, mugs, and a very opinionated tote bag. Link in the show notes.
The History AI podcast is produced with the latest AI architecture, which keeps our workflow efficient and the experience silky smooth.
For now, from the wide windswept steppe to your earbuds, we're Chuck.
And Marco. See you next time.
Out on the steppe where the cold wind bites, where the dawn breaks hard on the war-scarred heights, she rode with a crown made of iron and fire, Tomyris, queen of the endless gyre. They whispered her name like a warning drum, promise of war no empire outruns. For when Cyrus came with his golden throne, she swore he would never claim her home. He drew the line in the sand of the sky, said bend your knee or prepare to die. But queens of the grass don't bow to kings, they answer with arrows singing. Oh, Tomyris, rider of thunder, breaker of armies that march like the tide. With the blood of the steppe in your veins you rose, a storm no empire could hide. Oh, Tomyris, fierce as the sunrise, your vengeance set the plains alight. You swore to the heavens he'd pay in blood, and you kept that promise in the fight. Cyrus sent wine to her weary sons, a feast laid out when the daylight was done. The boy fell still in a drunken snare, a mother's grief turned the wind to prayer. She raised her banner with a carved bone spear, said bring me the king, bring him here. And when the Persians broke on the Massagetae, the earth itself began to cry. Through smoke and dust, through shield and flame, she carved a path to the man she blamed. And when he fell on that open ground, the sky went quiet, no other